Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton on this glorious Labor Day weekend. And my name is Amanda Sokola. I am a new practitioner here at our spiritual community and would like to have you all join me in stating our purpose statement. We are a loving spiritual community, empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. And now a few announcements. Our virtual book club, which is being hosted by Sally and myself, is on Monday, the September 13th. So that's in a week from Monday at 7 p.m. And we're reading Many Rivers to Cross. So you can either come to the book club after you read the book during that time, or you can come to the club and just observe to see if you want to maybe get in on the next book that we're going to read. And again, that's on September 13 at 7 p.m. If we don't have your email address, please see Tomoko after the service or sometime during the week if you're one of our virtual listeners. We're also having on September 19th the practitioner installation for myself and the rededication ceremony, which I think is really nice. All of our current practitioners will rededicate themselves to the center as they do the installation for me. And then they're going to have a potluck lunch after the service, and if you'd like to contribute and be a part of that, to sign up at the welcome table. Our next Panda Express virtual fundraiser is on Wednesday, September 22nd. So that information usually comes out in the weekly newsletter that's sent via email, and you'll get that from Tomoko. It is an easy way to help us raise funds for the center, so we do encourage you to try and participate if you can. Our Unexpected Income Club is doing really well, and we've reached our first goal of $12,000, so give yourselves a hand. And we'll be announcing how that's all going to be allocated sometime in the future. Our Science of Mind classes are also starting up again, and we're gathering our student list right now. So if you do have an interest in that, please let Tomoko know or Reverend Bill, and they'll be able to let you know exactly what the topics are, when they're going to start, and as they start to lay out the program. And that is the end of announcements, so I'd like you to welcome Tomoko Rosas as she brings us into prayer.
So, as we gather on this beautiful Labor Day weekend, just know with me that God is all there is, that God is that one power, one presence, one life, and we are each an extension, an expression of that one life. And as we are one, we are of the same essence of which God is. And from this place of oneness, I bless this service knowing that absolutely love, healing, inspiration is right here, right now. And as we recognize this truth, we radiate this truth and live this truth. And I bless the congregation, all those who are joining us here physically and also online. And I bless all the many hands that make this service possible. I bless the ushers and the greeters, the coffee fellowship, our musicians, our board of trustees, and my fellow practitioners. And a special blessing for Reverend Bill, and a welcome back, knowing that he has rested, rejuvenated, and full of inspiration to share with us today. And knowing this is already done, I release my word into the law and simply let it be. And so it is.
I need to be still and let God love me. I need to be still and let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still and let God love me.
Good morning once again. My name is Tomoko Rosas, and I'm a practitioner at this beautiful church. And today's reading, I brought a little story I found written by Leo Hellman. I'm not sure who he is, but this is a beautiful story. It's called Golden Windows. There was a small boy living on a farm, which seemed like so far away from everywhere. He needed to get up before sunrise every morning to start his chores and out again later to do the evening ones. During the sunrise, he would take a break and climb up on the fence so in the distance he could see the house with golden windows. He thought how great it would be to live there, and his mind would wander to imagine the modern equipment and appliances that might exist in the house. If they could afford golden windows, then they must have other nice things. He then promised himself, someday I will go there and see this wonderful place. Then one morning his father told him to stay at home, and his father would do the chores. Knowing that this was his chance, he packed a sandwich and headed across the field towards the house with the golden windows. As the afternoon went on, he began to realize how he misjudged the distance and something else was very wrong. As he approached the house, he saw no golden windows, but instead a place in bad need of painting, surrounded by a broken down fence. He went to the tattered screen door and knocked. A small boy, very close to his age, opened the door. He asked him if he had seen the house with the golden windows. The boy said, "Sure, I know," and invited him to sit on the porch. As he sat there, he looked back from where he just came, where the sunset turned the windows on his home to gold. Please join me in prayer. Let us take a deep breath together and simply follow it with Him. Rest at the seat of your heart just for a moment and become aware of the melding of your breath with the beating of your heart. Become conscious of the life force that animates your being. Know that God is this life force within you. It is within us, surrounds us, and expresses through us as beauty, love, peace, compassion, loving kindness, and so much more. We are one and inseparable from God as our breath is inseparable from our bodies. This is simply the truth of who we are. And from this place of truth, I speak my word for all of us here. We live in an unlimited universe, and we acknowledge that there is enough for all. Through the act of affirmative prayer, the limitless resource of the Spirit is at my command. The power of the infinite is at my disposal. I now avail myself to divine bounty and bless everything that I have. I bless everyone around me bless the events that transpire in my life, everything that goes out, everything that comes in. I acknowledge an increase of good in all I experience. In high gratitude, I simply say thank you, Father, Mother, God, and let my word be. And so it is.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give of my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. So once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. And love is my decision right here and now.
Wow. Tommy Cosentino, come on. Our monthly theme for September, the big picture. And the title of today's talk is The Goldilocks Universe. And it is a Goldilocks universe, and I've come to realize, I heard that phrase somewhere, and I thought, I really like that. And I can just get really behind that. And then, you know, we just came back from a little vacation in Oregon, and we stopped in Santa Barbara on the way back to visit Deb's daughter and granddaughter and son-in-law. And somehow or other, the topic of this talk got brought up. And Deb's daughter Erin says, oh, the Goldilocks universe, you mean about entitlement and selfishness? And I said, no, that's not what I was thinking about. She said, well, just think about it. I mean, here we have a little girl, of course it's a little girl, a little blonde-headed girl in our culture, right, with those curly locks. And we're not even going to ask the question about why she was traipsing through the trail in the woods all by herself at such a tender young age. And we're not going to talk about on Law and Order, if this was a week of Law and Order, it'd be breaking and entering, I'm sure. Trespassing at the very least. But you know, we know how the story goes. Mama Bear makes porridge for breakfast for Papa Bear and herself and Baby Bear, but it's too hot to eat, so they go out for a walk and let it cool. And meanwhile, along comes Goldilocks, and she knocks on the door. And like all of us would do, I guess, when nobody answered, just opened the door and went in. And of course, she saw the porridge on the table, and she tasted Papa Bear's bowl, and it was too hot. She tried Mama Bear's bowl, and it was too cold. And she tried Baby Bear's bowl, and guess what? was just right. So then she thought she'd go have a seat in the living room, and she sat on the one chair and it was too hard, and the other chair was too soft, and she sat on Baby Bear's chair, and guess what? Just right. Then she got a little tired, so she went up to the bedroom, and one bed was too hard and one bed was too soft, and guess what the other one was? Just right. You're coming along, I can see that. So, she lays down to take a nap because she's tired from eating all that food and destroying that little Baby Bear chair. And of course, then the bear family comes home and they find her in there, and she jumps up in a state of panic, jumps out the window and runs off, and I suppose lives happily ever after. In spite of the trauma, she probably had years of therapy after being awakened by those bears like that. So let's get the obvious negative stuff out of the way, in addition to the lack of respect for other people's things and the entitlement and the selfishness, things we do not want to emulate from this story. And I think now that I've seen this story, I mean really seen it, I think before I would repeat this to any young child, I'd make sure we had that little philosophical, religious, spiritual discussion afterward about lessons to not take from this story. And that would be lessons like, well, a lesson to take from it would be that we need to recognize boundaries, don't we? We can't just traipse down the wooded trail and completely disregard other people's sense of space and sense of being secure in their own space and not having to worry about what's going on when they do take that little walk. Don't we all take a little walk once in a while, waiting for our porridge to cool? And we want to also make sure that we don't come away with the idea of the impulsiveness that's inherent in this story and the lack of self-discipline. I mean, really, if we knocked on a door and nobody answered, are we going to open it and go in? Don't think so. Not if we're centered in our own space and not having to be so overly curious about somebody else's that we want to intrude upon it. Not to mention, it's maybe a little reckless. We don't want our kids coming away with that idea, do we? That it's okay to be reckless and to be totally unbounded and thoughtless. But what we do want is what I thought about this when I first saw that expression, Goldilocks universe. And that is, you notice that the things in the story come in threes. There's 3 bears. There's 3 things of porridge. There's 3 chairs. There's 3 beds. This is not an accident, because as we go through this universe, as we go through this life, as we experience it, we are going to experience 3 possibilities of everything that we're ever going to do. 1, the possibility that it's too hard, too hot, too reckless, too far out there. And the other one is that it's just, well, it's not enough. And the third one, of course, is always going to be what? It's just right. You know, somebody said that if you could take a tape measure and stretch it across the entire universe. I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, we have to get into that because it's not something we can readily do. But if it were possible to take a tape measure and stretch it across the entire universe, if we moved one celestial body 1 inch on that tape measure from where it is, the entire thing would just come apart. The entire universe would either just destroy or certainly be shook up to be something where it is not now. So the fact of the matter is, everything in the entire universe is just right. It's exactly where it needs to be. It operates exactly how it needs to be. And sometimes we kind of lose sight of that. Sometimes we think that, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, this could be better. And really in this worldly situation that is our life, this is an educational experience, when we find things are not right, we need not despair. Because there's always that position, there's always that consciousness, there's always that just right Goldilocks spot that's available to us. Because that's the way this life was made. Remember, we're not just randomly, there wasn't a flyby with some huge alien spaceship and they gave us the boot and this is where we landed. I've actually heard, I've heard talks by physicists who absolutely declare that everything about spirituality and everything about the idea that we have been created by some consciousness, which we have been, is absolutely wrong. It says, oh, it's all about evolution. It's hard to imagine scientists, physicists, intelligent, educated people being so short-sighted. And that's not all physicists, because most of them these days are coming around to realizing that the more they look at this universe, the more it resembles a consciousness than anything else. And yet those few holdouts are still insisting that, well, to answer the question that I'm going to ask, where I come from, they're going to tell me, well, you evolved from a single cell. So my next question is, well, where'd that single cell come from? Somebody created that single cell that I evolved from, and their answer typically is going to be, no, you know, we just had chemicals and processes, and the more we added on to them, the more complex they became, and eventually they became life. Educated scientists telling me that life began by just piling on complexity to inert, non-living items. And you know, I'm sorry. You can take all the inert, non-living stuff in the entire universe and stack it on top of each other, and I dare say it's not going to somehow magically turn into life. It just isn't. You cannot get life from non-living stuff. Life has to be created. Life was somehow begun for us, as us eventually. So is evolution important? Of course it is. Because if not, we'd still be living in those caves. I'd like to think they'd be decorated a little nicer today, but still that's where we'd be living. So we have evolved and evolved and evolved, and if you notice, it gets exponential. Our evolution used to take hundreds of years to develop something. Now, it takes hours, minutes. So there is that thing, and that's because at bottom, and not just at bottom, but entirely ensconcing everything that we know or are ever going to know, is this Goldilocks principle, that life is just right. So I'm going to admit to being human. Anybody else want to admit to being human? You don't have to. But I know that in my humanity and my personness, that I am not always doing everything for mine and everybody else's highest and best good. Love to think I could. Well, I could. Love to think I do. But little things come along, don't they? That kind of bump us out of the way from that direct flight to divinity. Back to divinity. But the fact that this educational thing called living on this planet that we do is here in order to help us recognize that everything is just right, and to let us know that whenever we feel a little bit askew, we just have to kind of hunker down and understand that that's only because there's something we're missing. Not something we're missing as in something not available to us, something we're missing as in like the point. Okay? If my life isn't going right, or my life isn't going the way I want it, how do I fix that? Do you fix it for me? No. I have to fix that myself because I'm not missing something, I'm missing the awareness that that's something that is required for my perfect life to come into my mentality. You know, if you were here for the meditation, Tomoko referenced Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith talking about there is within us all that haunting feeling, that urge that pushes us ever onward, ever forward, advances us ever so much spiritually. And that is within us. And sometimes when we feel that, it's because we have lost that center of our divinity. We have lost the awareness of that essential spark of God that is within all of us. When we lose the awareness of that, is it gone forever? God, let's hope not. It's only gone as long as it takes us to realize that that's where we've come to, and now we need to find what? That spot in us that's just right. And it's always there, and it's always available. And that middle spot, middle road, if you will, is there in every possible part of our existence. I mean, it's there in, what? Got any economics majors in here? It's there in the economy, right? The sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, is somewhere between that kind of constant economical building before it leads us into this inflation, right? So we can have both. We can have growth, and we can have it to the point where we have inflation. What we want is something in the middle. We have it in politics. And my God, if you don't see that today, we're going to have trouble getting us all back on the right path. I mean, you've got one extreme here, you've got one extreme here. Where's the Goldilocks zone? Has to be somewhere in the middle. Do we need to have those three different things all the time? Even the universe itself. Without the gravitational pull of the moon, there'd be so many things missing from this planet. But if we had a little bit more gravitational pull, what would happen? We're out of here. If the sun was a little bit closer, well, let's put it the other way, because it's not close to us, we're close to you. So if we were a little closer to the sun, life on this planet couldn't exist. It'd be too hot. If we were a little further from the sun, life on this planet couldn't exist. It'd be too cold. That is to say, life as we know it. Because what we know for sure is probably about 0.0000001 of what is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the human condition, it's the human hubris that somehow makes us think that we got all the answers to everything. We know everything already. We are so far advanced. But the fact is, we are only advancing when we're staying within that Goldilocks zone. When we are countering all the extremes in favor of that center spot. And I'm not talking about mediocrity here. I'm not talking about the center spot as in taking the safe way out. We don't take the safe way out. But we don't foolishly and recklessly go to extremes either. We find that spot within us, that awareness that we have of our place in the universe, and awareness of the fact that we need to continue to evolve, and we can only do that if we are evolving spiritually, because if we evolved in every other manner except spirituality, where would we be? I mean, you can have all the things you want. We can make all the advances in science and technology, but we don't make advances in science. Science, after all, is only discovering what is there to talk about. But as far as technology goes, what good is the highest technology in the world if we don't have the spiritual basis with which to operate it and live within it safely for the highest and best good, again, of all of us? You know, Mary Baker Eddy, in her seminal work, Health and Science, said that we cannot build safely on false foundations. So for us to build and to grow, we have to mature into our spirituality and into our awareness of our divinity. There is nothing without divinity within. There's nothing. Sometimes, however, that divinity is not recognized. It's not ever the case that it's not there. It just isn't recognized. I remember back, I don't want to date myself, but I think it was somewhere in the late 60s or in the 70s or something, where we used to make fun of tree huggers. Tree huggers. How can you hug a tree? Well, you can hug a tree because that tree is made from the same substance, that same star substance that we're made of, and that everything else is made of. And it has within it some divinity. And if we can't recognize that all things come from that one power and that one presence, and ours is not to dominate those other spiritual entities, ours is to live in harmony with them. And we can only live in harmony with them if we slow down a little bit and find that Goldilocks zone, put that Goldilocks principle to work. Because on the one hand, we have, well, we're not able to advance without doing certain things to our world. And on the other hand, we have disaster from the destruction of those divine entities that are put here in order to help us maintain our existence here and find our way and our spiritual awareness back to that source from which we came. And Carolyn Miss, everybody know Carolyn Miss? So in her book, Sacred Contract, she said that once we are awakened to something, to a truth, to a principle, once we're awakened to it, we have accountability. Once we become aware of some part of the spiritual process and that spiritual divinity within all which we all live and move and have our being, it's not okay to pretend we don't know that and to take ourselves outside of those truths. Once we are aware, we are accountable. We don't get to backpedal, we don't get to backstep, we don't get to say, well, I didn't know, or I forgot, or I know, but just this one time. It doesn't work like that. We have to always keep our eye on the prize, and the prize is given to everybody. And the prize is not enough, not too much, it's what? Just right. The prize is that experience of the God that is within us. And we can only experience that if we're staying true to our course and not getting swept to either side. You know, the idea of the three things in the Goldilocks story and the three things in life, this goes back to the beginning of time, before time. But it goes, for us, as far as religion goes, it goes all the way back to God trying to make a choice of a venue within which to deliver the Torah to Moses. Where did he do it? Well, when he started looking around, I say, because that's the phrasing from that time period. But when God started looking around, he said, well, where can I get Moses to come to so I can give him the stuff? Because everybody knows humanity needs it. And this one great big giant mountain said, I'm the tallest, should be here. Then another one, smaller, says, I'm the most beautiful, should be here. But God didn't pick either one of them. God picked Mount Sinai. Why? Because Mount Sinai was just the right place. It was a little more humble than the big giant mountain that was so proud of itself. And it might not have been quite as beautiful as the other mountain, but it was a little bit higher, and it just served the purpose just right. So, of course, we know the rest of that story. Oh, there was somebody who asked, well, if that's the case, why didn't you just do it in a nice lush valley? Why didn't the Torah come down in a nice lush valley with all that beauty? And that answer is pretty simple also, because we don't want a representation of a valley, because we as humans are not doormats. As spiritual beings, we're not doormats. We're not down there being trod upon. We're not being overlooked by all other things. No, the Goldilocks place for that delivery was right there in the middle mountain. We have this name, Jesus Christ. And we take it, at least contemporary, evangelical type Christianity takes that as being this guy's name. And sure enough, it became his name. But the fact is, this was Jesus of Nazareth. He was not the first to experience his awareness of the Christ consciousness. That went back for many, 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 many years before him. He just turned out to be the perfect example because he recognized it as being that Goldilocks zone. And he displayed to us, and he set an example for us to what we could become, what we could do, how we could live with this principle and direct it for everything we could ever need, want, or desire. But that Christ part, and they call it, first it was Jesus the Christ, right? Here was Jesus of Nazareth who was filled with this Christ consciousness. We're all filled with it. Are we all aware of it as he was? No. What a wonderful world it would be if that was the case. Do we all allow it to direct our lives, and do we use it to direct our lives? Yes. At a certain level we do. We all have people we really like, and people we really don't. But guess what? That Christ consciousness is totally and completely within those that we don't like, just the same as it is with those that we do. The difference is they are not aware of it. And if you're not aware of something, very often you don't use it to its full capability. You don't use it to the best of your ability. But it's still there. It came to all of us because everything ever, eternally and infinitely in existence, came from that very Christ principle. That is the life that we are. That is how life got to this planet and wherever else it is. We just have to become aware of it, and we have to know our place. So what we're looking for is that beautiful spot, that Goldilocks zone, that balance between our physical nature and our divine nature. That's all we're talking about. That's it in a nutshell. We have to blend those two things. But we don't have to blend them. They're already blended within us. We just have to be aware of that and know that we can adjust, just like baking. You know, you need a little more sweetness, put in a little more sugar. You need a little less of this, put in a little less of this. We get to blend our physical and our divine. And we get to do that to the best of our ability once we're aware that we can. Back about, probably 100 years ago, there was this guy, Max Ehrmann. Max Ehrmann made up he was a poet, writer, and he made up this little thing that eventually got put on Christmas cards, and it speaks perfectly to this point. It's titled Desiderata. It goes like this. Well, it's a long thing. I just narrowed it down to what we want to use today. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive God to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. And I have to tell you, I wish I had written that. The only thing I think I might have changed was this part about striving to be happy. We don't have to strive. We just have to be. You want to be happy? Be happy. This entire universe is made for us. There's nothing we could ever possibly want or desire that's not available if we just open the door to that Goldilocks zone and use that principle to get it. Back to Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. It's that haunting feeling only until we realize that that is the life urge, that is the God in us calling out to connect with the God in every other thing. Once we recognize that, we have left behind can you be overly spiritual? Sure. If you're so lost in your spirituality that you can't recognize that we have this physical life to live, that's a problem. Or if you're so involved and wrapped up in the physical life, the consumerism, the warring, the commercialism, all of that, you're not gonna be in the right spot either. But when we recognize that haunting feeling is just that life urge, all we need to do is express it. When we express it, we don't need to strive to be happy. When we're expressing the urge to live, the urge to be spiritual, the urge to exercise our divinity, the rest is just a matter of course. It can't be any other way. It has to be happy. So let's just take this into prayer, because let's just know that as I keep my eyes open for that Goldilocks spot, for that zone, for that principle to be active in my life, that principle of knowing that I am enough and I am perfect in every manner because I am made by that divine consciousness that has created all things in all times and all places. I know that my place is to be recognized and to recognize the divinity in everything, every person I'm ever going to meet. And to know that as long as I stay in this sweet spot, as long as I recognize and realize that it is the God within me working, I can direct it outwards in any manner of goodness, in any manner of love and community and joy and beauty, in any manner of spirituality. And all manners lead to the same place. They lead right back to that divine consciousness, that oneness with that consciousness that we have never left, but have only allowed ourselves to feel separated from. Knowing this is the case, is with grateful heart I say, thank you, God. Thank you for the awareness of this in my life. And I just let this word go, knowing that it is already so. And together we say, so it is. Let's just take a moment to realize that this is our opportunity to share our abundance. It's our opportunity to know and know that we know that all of our good comes from that one source, God. And for this we are grateful. Just want to thank everybody in attendance for one, being here, and two, for your gracious gifts, tithes, and offerings. And knowing that those of you who are watching this on YouTube rather than being here in the sanctuary, thank you for your continued support, because it is with that support that we are allowed and able to keep going. And of course, if you're not here in person, you can go to the website and donate, as you know, or you can auto-tithe that, or you can come down and deliver that in person. So thank you very much. So we not bless these gifts, these tithes, and these offerings, knowing that they are given from the central core of who we are, which is God made manifest on this plane, us as God in motion. We send them forward to do their good work in the community and the world. So it is.
You wonder where I've been, search to find a love within. I came back to let you know I've got a thing to do, and I can't let go. My friends wonder what is wrong with me. Well, I'm in the days for love, you see. And I came back to let you know we got a thing to do, and we can't let it go. Some people go around the world for love, but may never find what they dream of. What you won't do it for love. Try everything and don't give up. In your world, only you can do for love what you would not do. My friends wonder what's wrong with me. Well, I'm in the days for a love you'd see. To let you know we got a thing to do, we can't let it go. Oh, I only want the best, that's true. Can't believe these things I do for you. What you won't do it for love. Try everything, don't give up. In your world, only you can do for love what you would not do. You can do for love what you would not do. for love what you would not do. Do it for love. Do it for love. Oh, yeah. What you would not do.
Just know together that something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called just right.
It's this thing called just right.
I feel it.
I feel it.
I think it.
I think it.
I know it.
I know it.
I am it.
I am it.
Thank you, God, in me.